I spilled champagne all over the most powerful woman in the room, my boss, at her own party. I thought I was about to get fired on the spot. Instead, she grabbed my hand, pulled me close, and whispered something that changed my entire life. Let me tell you what happened that night. Hey, before we dive into this wild story, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you're not going to believe where this goes. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. I'm talking about billionaires, fake relationships that turn real, and a night that flipped my whole world upside down. So get comfortable, maybe grab some snacks, and let me take you back to that night. The night everything changed. Okay, so let me set the scene for you. My name is Brianna, and at the time this happened, I was 28 years old, working as a senior financial analyst at one of the biggest investment firms in the city. Now, I know that sounds fancy, but let me be real with you. I was drowning in student loans, living in a decent but tiny apartment and working 60-hour weeks just to prove I belonged in those boardrooms. I was tired, stressed, and honestly, I felt invisible most days. Just another black woman working twice as hard to get half the recognition, you know what I mean? But here's the thing. My boss, Dominique Harper, she was different. This woman was a self-made billionaire who built an entire media and entertainment empire from the ground up. We're talking magazines, television networks, production companies, the whole 9 yards. She started with nothing, just like me, and turned her vision into something massive. Dominique was 42, brilliant, intimidating as hell, and completely untouchable. In the 2 years I'd worked at that company, I'd only spoken to her twice. Once in an elevator where she nodded at me, and once in a meeting where she asked me to repeat a financial projection. That was it. She was like this mythical figure who existed on a completely different level from the rest of us. So when the invitation came for the company's 15th anniversary gala, I almost didn't go. It was at this luxury hotel ballroom downtown, the kind of place where everything costs more than my monthly rent. Black tie optional, champagne fountains, the works. I looked at that invitation sitting on my desk and thought, girl, you don't belong there. That's for the executives and the people who actually matter. But my best friend Tasha, bless her heart, she wasn't having it. She called me up and said, Brianna, you work your behind off for that company. You deserve to go enjoy yourself, drink their expensive champagne, and eat their fancy food. Put on something gorgeous and show up. So I did. I went to 3 different stores trying to find a dress I could afford that didn't look cheap. Finally settled on this beautiful navy blue number that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I could fit in for one night. The night of the gala, I showed up with my stomach in knots. The ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, live orchestra, tables covered in white linens with centerpieces that probably cost more than my car payment. Everyone looked so polished, so comfortable in this world of wealth and power. And there I was, clutching my little purse, trying to remember which fork to use for what course, feeling like an imposter. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter just to have something to do with my hands, you know? That nervous energy where you need to look occupied so people don't see how out of place you feel. I was standing near the edge of the ballroom, trying to look confident while internally planning my escape route, when it happened. Someone behind me, I still don't know who, bumped into me hard. Maybe they tripped, maybe they were drunk, I don't know. But I stumbled forward, and everything went into slow motion. My champagne glass tilted, the golden liquid arcing through the air, and I crashed directly into someone. Not just someone, Dominique Harper, my boss, the billionaire owner of the entire company. And I watched in absolute horror as my entire glass of champagne splashed across her outfit, her expensive, pristine white designer outfit. The music didn't stop, but I swear everything else did. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Everyone was staring at us. At me, the clumsy analyst who just assaulted the CEO with champagne. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I opened my mouth to apologize, but all that came out was this pathetic stammering. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. Someone pushed me. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. This was it. Career over. Reputation destroyed. I'd probably be fired before I even made it home that night. But then Dominique looked at me, and here's the crazy part. She didn't look angry. Her dark eyes were calm, almost amused, and there was this tiny smile playing at the corner of her lips. Before I could turn and run away like every instinct was screaming at me to do, she reached out and gently grabbed my wrist. Not hard, not aggressive, just firm enough to keep me from bolting. She leaned in close, so close I could smell her perfume, something expensive and sophisticated that probably cost more than my entire outfit. And she whispered in my ear, "Act like you're mine. I'll handle the rest." I froze. What? What did that even mean? But before I could process what was happening, Dominique turned to face the crowd of people staring at us, and her whole demeanor changed. She smiled, warm and confident, and kept her hand on my arm. "Everyone," she announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "this is Brianna. She's with me tonight." Just like that. Simple, direct, and somehow, the way she said it made it sound completely natural, like of course we were together, like this had been the plan all along. The crowd's expressions shifted from shock to understanding, from judgment to polite interest. People nodded, smiled, went back to their conversations. Dominique guided me away from the center of attention, her hand still on my arm, leading me through the ballroom toward a private balcony I hadn't even noticed before. My mind was racing. What just happened? Why did she say that? Was I dreaming? Did I hit my head when I bumped into her? Once we were outside on the balcony, away from prying eyes and curious ears, Dominique finally let go of my arm. The night air was cool, a welcome relief from the stuffy ballroom and my racing heart. She leaned against the railing, looking out at the city lights, and let out this long breath. "I'm sorry for putting you on the spot like that," she said, and her voice was different now, softer, less commanding, more human. "But I need to explain something, and I need you to hear me out before you think I've completely lost my mind." I nodded, still too shocked to form words. Dominique turned to face me fully, and for the first time I saw something vulnerable in her expression. "My ex-partner, Andre, is here tonight. He brought his new girlfriend, and for the past hour he's been making the rounds, telling anyone who'll listen that I'm still hung up on him, that I can't move on, that I'll always be alone because I chose my career over a relationship. It's petty, it's immature, and normally I wouldn't care. But tonight, in front of all these people, colleagues, investors, board members, I just couldn't take it anymore. And then you literally bumped into me, and I saw an opportunity. A way to shut him up and save us both from an awkward situation." She looked at me with this hopeful, almost pleading expression. "I know this is completely insane, and you have every right to walk away right now. But would you be willing to help me out? Just for tonight? Pretend we're together, let people see us looking happy, and I promise I'll make it worth your while. A bonus, a promotion consideration, whatever you need. I just need Andre to see that I've moved on, that I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." I should have said no. I should have politely declined, gone home, and pretended this whole night never happened. But standing there on that balcony, looking at this powerful woman who suddenly seemed so human, so vulnerable, something in me shifted. Maybe it was the champagne, maybe it was the adrenaline, or maybe it was just that I was tired of playing it safe, tired of being invisible. "Okay," I heard myself say, "I'll do it, but just for tonight." The relief on Dominique's face was genuine. She smiled, really smiled, and it transformed her whole face. "Thank you," she said. "Truly. I know this is weird, but I promise I'll make this as painless as possible. Come on, let's go back in there and give them a show." And that's exactly what we did. We walked back into that ballroom like we owned the place. Well, she did own the place, but you know what I mean. Dominique kept her hand on the small of my back, introduced me to executives and investors, told stories that made me laugh, and somehow made me feel like I actually belonged there. It was strange how easy it was to fall into this role, how natural it felt to stand beside her. She asked me about my work, my background, my dreams, and she actually listened to the answers. Not the polite half-listening that people do at parties, but real attention. She was funny too, with this dry wit that caught me off guard. She'd make these observations about people at the party that had me trying not to laugh out loud. About an hour into our little performance, he showed up. Andre. I recognized him immediately from company photos and news articles. Tall, good-looking in that generic way, expensive suit, and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He had his arm around a younger woman, blonde and polished, who looked vaguely uncomfortable. "Dominique," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. "What a lovely party. You've really outdone yourself." His eyes slid to me, assessing, dismissive. "And who's this?" I felt Dominique's hand tighten slightly on my waist. "This is Brianna," she said smoothly, "my girlfriend." The word hung in the air between us, and I saw Andre's smile falter just a fraction. "We've been seeing each other for a few months now. Brianna works in financial analysis. She's brilliant, actually. Just closed a major projection that's going to reshape our investment strategy for next quarter." Andre's girlfriend murmured something polite, but Andre himself was staring at me with barely concealed skepticism. "Really? I hadn't heard anything about you dating someone new, Dominique. That's surprising, given how much you usually broadcast your personal life." The dig was obvious, mean-spirited, and before I could stop myself, I stepped forward. "Maybe she just hasn't felt the need to announce it to people who don't matter anymore," I said, keeping my voice level but firm. "Besides, some things are worth keeping private. When you've built an empire like she has, you learn to protect what's actually valuable." I felt Dominique's surprised glance at me, but I kept my eyes on Andre. She doesn't need validation from anyone, especially not from people living in the past. Look at everything she's accomplished, everything she continues to build. That speaks louder than any relationship status ever could. There was a beat of silence. Andre's face flushed slightly, his jaw tightening. His girlfriend looked between us, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. Finally, Andre forced a laugh that sounded hollow. "Well, congratulations to you both," he said stiffly, and then he was walking away, his girlfriend hurrying to keep up with his aggressive stride. As soon as they were gone, Dominique turned to me, and there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. Gratitude, definitely, but something else too. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Jump to my defense like that." I shrugged, suddenly feeling self-conscious. He was being a jerk. Someone needed to call him on it. We stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, and something shifted. The pretend thing we were doing started to feel less pretend. The air between us felt charged with something real, something unexpected. "Dance with me," Dominique said suddenly. It wasn't a question, but it wasn't quite a command either. She held out her hand, and after only a brief hesitation, I took it. We moved to the dance floor, and when she pulled me close, my heart was racing for entirely different reasons now. We swayed to the music, and Dominique started talking, really talking. About the pressure of running an empire, about the loneliness at the top, about how hard it is to know who genuinely cares about you versus who just wants access to your money or power. I opened up too, about feeling invisible at work despite pouring everything into my job, about the constant pressure to prove I deserved to be in those rooms, about the exhaustion of always having to be twice as good. "I see you," Dominique said suddenly, her voice fierce. "I've been watching your work for months, Brianna. The Hampton portfolio analysis? That was genius. The risk assessment on the media merger? Brilliant. You're not invisible. Not to me." The way she looked at me when she said it made my breath catch. This wasn't part of the act anymore. This was real. The connection between us was real, crackling like electricity in the space between our bodies. We stayed on that dance floor longer than necessary, talking and laughing and slowly letting our guards down. By the time the party started winding down, I'd completely forgotten this was supposed to be fake. When Dominique walked me to my car, she hesitated before saying goodbye. "Can I see you again?" she asked, and there was vulnerability in her voice. "For real this time? Not for show? Not to prove anything to anyone, just because I'd really like to know you better." I should have been cautious. I should have thought about all the complications, the power dynamics, the potential for disaster. But standing there under the streetlights with this incredible woman looking at me like I mattered, like I was worth knowing, I couldn't bring myself to care about any of that. "Yes," I said simply. "I'd like that too." Monday morning came too fast. I walked into the office with my stomach in knots, wondering if I'd imagined the whole thing, wondering if things would be weird now. "Brianna, thank you for coming," she said formally, and for a second my heart sank. This was it. She was going to thank me for my help and pretend Friday night never happened. But then she continued, "I wanted to speak with you about a position that's opening up, Director of Strategic Planning. The role involves working directly with senior leadership on high-level financial strategy and investment decisions. I've been reviewing candidates for the past 3 months, and I believe you're the right person for this position." My mouth fell open. What? Are you serious?" Dominique's expression turned serious. "I don't make business decisions based on anything other than merit and capability, Brianna. This has nothing to do with Friday night. I've been watching your work since you joined the company. You're brilliant, you're innovative, and you're ready for this role." The promotion was already in motion before the gala. She paused, then added more softly, "But I'd also like to take you to dinner Friday night, as a real date, if you're still interested." The office gossip started almost immediately. People whispered in break rooms, speculated in private messages, wondered if I'd slept my way to a promotion. It stung, especially coming from people I'd considered friends. Even Tasha warned me to be careful. "I'm happy for you, girl, but mixing business with pleasure is dangerous territory, especially when there's that much of a power gap." The doubts crept in. Had I actually earned this promotion, or was it favoritism? Was Dominique just using her power to get what she wanted? I couldn't take it anymore. I marched back up to her office and confronted her directly. "Did I earn this promotion, or did you give it to me because of what happened at the party?" Dominique didn't get defensive. Instead, she opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a file. My personnel file. She flipped to a page dated 3 months earlier, before the gala, before any of this started. There was a memo in her handwriting. "Brianna Thompson, flag for director position when available, track record exceptional, ready for leadership." "I don't do charity, Brianna," she said, looking me straight in the eye. "I invest in excellence. And you're excellent. You earned this position through your work, your intelligence, and your dedication. The only thing that changed at the party was that I finally got to know you as a person, not just as an employee, and I liked what I found. But if you want to turn down both the promotion and the date, I'll respect that decision. Your career is yours. I won't jeopardize it." The sincerity in her voice, the proof right there in black and white, it shattered my doubts. We decided to keep our personal relationship private for a while, let people see my work speak for itself. But we also both admitted we wanted to explore whatever this was between us, this unexpected connection that started with champagne and ended with something that felt like it might be real. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm thriving in my new role, making decisions that actually impact the company's direction, finally feeling seen and valued for what I bring to the table. And Dominique? We're still together, taking it slow, figuring it out as we go. We went public at last month's company event, and yeah, there were some raised eyebrows, but there was also respect. Because by then, everyone had seen what I could do on my own merit. The relationship isn't perfect. Nothing ever is. We're both stubborn, both driven, both learning how to balance power dynamics with genuine partnership, but it's real, and it's worth fighting for. So that's how one accidental champagne spill changed my entire life. Sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them, when you take a chance on something that seems crazy. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me, what's the craziest coincidence that ever changed your life? Have you ever had a moment where everything shifted in an instant? I want to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe because I've got more stories coming that you won't want to miss. Stories about taking chances, about finding love in unexpected places, about claiming the life you deserve. Thanks for watching, and remember, you never know who's been watching you shine. Sometimes the person who sees your worth has been there all along, just waiting for the right moment. See you in the next one.